Right, 11 January 2021, and I'm joined by Mr. Tinashe Jonas, President of Ideal Zimbabwe. How are you, sir?
As usual, it's a privilege to be on Gambakwe Media.
Okay, fantastic. So since you are talking to me immediately after President Ramaphosa made his announcements, especially the border closures, I want to quickly hear your views. Do you think President Ramaphosa did the right thing to close all the 20 land borders of South Africa?
Yeah, that was a sign of responsibility because the COVID-19 cases in South Africa are skyrocketing. So I think there was
Okay.
no other there was no other option.
Okay, what is the impact on Zimbabwe of the border closures?
I don't think there's any impact because Zimbabwe was the first to close its side of the border. I mean, and remember, most of the cases, COVID-19 cases in Zimbabwe are spilling from South Africa. So I think, but nonetheless, in terms of COVID-19, if they close the borders now, they've opened Gate 5, which is the illegal borders into Zimbabwe. And the illegal routes, there's no checking of the COVID-19 certificates and everything. The activities between the two countries are going to continue unabated. Nothing will stop people from crossing the rivers.
Okay. Are you aware if the soldiers at the border who were deployed by South Africa are still there?
Whether they are there or not, but we all know that the crossing of Zimbabweans into South Africa and back, it's normal. If you have experienced the route, you understand that they are not deterred. When people talk about illegal crossing, it's like a big news, you know. It's like it's a big event, but there are even people who are paid money to carry the goods across and to. It's a normal activity. Was there are people who cross through this illegal entries more than 50 times a day because they are even paid to cross the goods, to help people to cross. This is a normal thing. Whether the borders are opened, the borders are closed, there are people who use the I call it Gate 5. Some they also call it Gate 5. Gate 5 is always busy.
Okay. So in Zimbabwe, let's say this border closure is effective. How is this going to impact the people on our Zimbabwean side?
Yeah, especially the Beitbridge side, the impact is huge because the biggest industry around the Beitbridge is obviously the activities around the border. Now that the borders are closed, the economy around the border town under a level 4 lockdown, people the economy will really deteriorate and people would feel the impact.
Okay, so I think that is that. Let us go to today's topic. You saw this afternoon a reporting by the Star newspaper where they showed a headline. This was the main story in today's paper, that Nelson Chamisa is being sponsored by Cyril Ramaphosa. This is the headline that came out today. If you forgive me, I've just closed your face there.
Okay.
Ramaphosa funds Zimbabwe opposition. Have you seen this headline?
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, so I've got the physical paper here with me, just in case people think we're lying. This is the physical paper. Ramaphosa funds Zimbabwe opposition. And the allegation that they're making here is that the Zimbabwe Central Intelligence Organization has been following leads. And obviously, if they're investigating someone over a long period of time, it means that there's something over there. There's something happening. Do you believe that the Zimbabwe Central Intelligence Organization is justified to probe Nelson Chamisa and his relationship with Cyril Ramaphosa?
Okay. I think the Central Intelligence Organization is a department responsible for state security. When someone, not only limited to Nelson Chamisa, but when a Zimbabwean citizen is, remember, under our constitution, getting foreign funding is unlawful, is a crime on its own. Because if a foreign country or foreign people fund a Zimbabwean, obviously they will be safeguarding their own interests, not the interests of Zimbabwe. Yet the Department of Central Intelligence, its duties, as prescribed by our law, our constitution, is to safeguard the national interests and the national security of the country. Hence, they are called state security. So whenever there's a Zimbabwean or a party or an organization, when it's being foreign funded, obviously it's a soft colonization. It means that when those people are in power, they will be captured. So to me, they don't need to be justified. They'll be doing their constitutional obligation.
Okay, but in your view, is Nelson Chamisa being funded by, for example, South Africa, and why?
Okay, since the source of the motivation for this discussion is a story from the South African paper, and I'm also happy that the editor is a close friend of mine, Sfiso. Okay, now I'll take this story into a believing into it, B, taking it like it's false, because there are key indicators in both scenarios. Let me take the first one, that let's assume South Africa is funding Nelson Chamisa. What are the indicators? Number one, the first indicator is that the South African media, especially the government, we know that SABC is the South African Broadcast Corporation, is a state-run television station. The Zimbabwean version is the ZBC. So SABC being state-run, obviously ANC has got a grip and some influence on its editorial policy. And there's no denying, no one can deny that SABC is relentlessly giving much coverage to actually, let me just say, MDC Alliance and its apologists. That is there's no doubt about that. And historically, we know that ANC and both ANC and ZANU-PF, they enjoy a cozy, cordial relationship. They are both revolutionary parties, and now to have the government media and private media in South Africa all covering whether it's truth, objective, or the news is not objective. I'm not there to judge, but I can say over 90% of the coverage is negative stories about Zimbabwe. That's number one. The second one is that both South Africa media, they are pushing the narrative that there's a crisis in Zimbabwe, and the crisis in Zimbabwe, it needs intervention. And on the South African delegation went to Zimbabwe twice, wanting to have an audience, seeking an audience with ZANU-PF, seeking an audience with the opposition. They mentioned a bit of opposition political parties to talk to, but it was clear that they wanted to talk to MDC Alliance. But they had to add some some popcorn opposition political parties. I mean, so even I mean, an air force going with a military private jet for what? Because the ANC can call ZANU-PF, can invite ZANU-PF to South Africa, to Pretoria. Pretoria can also go to Harare and meet ZANU-PF. They are brothers. Obviously, there's communication which is regular. Why would they want to meet ZANU-PF and MDC and sort of sit them down? You don't go. Zimbabwe is a sovereign country. You don't just fly in and then order ZANU-PF to the table, order MDC to the table, and then play mediation within the borders of Zimbabwe. That is the gross interference, and you can't do that. It's kind, in a way, it shows us that there is deeper South African, I mean, interest in the Zimbabwean political arena. And number three, I can say the family of President Ramaphosa has been has got a terrible record of funding political parties. I will mention Botswana as an example. The young sister of President Ramaphosa's wife, Bridget Hadebe, is accused of funding an opposite. I mean, to subvert the outcome of the Congress in Botswana, and even the figures, and there's a whole lot. It was a huge scandal in Botswana, and they are actually accused of meeting in Zimbabwe, I think in Victoria Falls or whatsoever. It's almost had there's a strained diplomatic relations between South Africa and Botswana because of that attempt to subvert the outcome of a Congress in Botswana. So, and we know that it's a rich family. They've gotten huge investments in South Africa and in SADC. The Ramaphosas, the Mutsipes, and these are the powerful, rich families in South Africa. So, because of their business, I mean, huge investments in SADC, they are likely to the politics. They've got an invested interest in the how politics play in the countries that they've invested huge sums of money. So those are some of the indicators. Then, if we then take it that probably the story is false, what can we consider? In that regard, we consider that Ramaphosa is belonging to ANC, is the president of ANC, and ANC and ZANU-PF, their sister political parties, they are cousins. So for him to do that, because that has got a potential for a civil war, that has got a potential. The outcome is disastrous because they trust each other, they love one another, and then for Harare to understand, to really grab the evidence that ANC or South Africa is sponsoring Chamisa, it will be a problem. And also the meeting which happened between President Ramaphosa and Nelson Chamisa, that meeting, the minutes of the meeting was never disclosed, neither the summary, and Harare has got a reason to be worried when its neighbor, the sitting president, hosts a meeting with the opposition in Zimbabwe. I mean, obviously Harare will be suspicious because ZANU-PF has never hosted Julius Malema since he has been an opposition leader because of respect of the ANC. So to me, it's also, that meeting on its own was kind of a betrayal to ZANU-PF.
Okay, so let's go to the meeting that you're talking about. Is that the one in November 2018?
Yes.
Okay, but that is not a secret meeting. This newspaper is saying Chamisa had secret meetings with Ramaphosa.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not talking about the November 18 meeting. Do you believe that there was such a meeting, a secret meeting between Ramaphosa and Chamisa?
And personally, I'm tempted to believe that, because every MDC, sorry, let me not say MDC, because there's a progressive MDC being led by Mr. Monzora, and then there's a terrorist organization called MDC Alliance. MDC Alliance and its apologists, the Hopo Echingono, Pedzisairuanya, Nyembesi, Mahere, they all talk about President Ramaphosa. You should intervene. If you the last interview, I think, of Hopo Echingono with even ENCA, he was screaming of President Ramaphosa he was saying that he was attributing the crisis at the border to lack of intervention by President Ramaphosa to confront the ZANU-PF. In the same breath, Simba Chikanza was also talking on SABC, also blaming President Ramaphosa for not confronting ZANU-PF and intervening. So there is a systematic and a narrative pattern that is consistent of crying out loud for President Ramaphosa to intervene. Whenever there's a mention of the word dialogue, there's always a mention of President Ramaphosa. Yet Zimbabwe hosted the elections, and the election, it's almost 2 years now, going to 3 years. Election has been done. Those who went to court, they did no V11s. Number one, they didn't have V11s because they didn't field candidates in all constituencies. Secondly, they didn't have V11s because they didn't pay their poll agents. So the poll agents left with the V11s. So
okay,
yes,
yeah. So let's keep focused on that point, because I want us to clarify this article. The article is saying when the ANC delegation came to Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF did not allow them to meet Chamisa, other opposition parties, and the United States ambassador, Brian Nichols, because the plan had been hatched by Ramaphosa, Chamisa, the US embassy, and yourself, Mr. Jonas. You said the aeroplane was paid for by Xavier Kasukuwere. You remember that discussion we had?
Yes.
Okay. So is this, what was the plan? What had they planned to do if Chamisa had met with Ramaphosa's delegation, the US embassy, and the other opposition parties and civic groups?
Okay. Obviously, Kasukuwere, the G40 kingpins, they are. We also see that they went to Lutuli House and met the Secretary General of ANC, Comrade S. Mahashule, and other top officials, probably the top 6. To me, at some point, I was watching even the U.S. Secretary of African Affairs mentioning that he has got a good relationships with SADC countries, and South Africa in particular. With South Africa, because of its economic and political influence, economic influence on Zimbabwe, it's a strategic partner in putting pressure on Zimbabwe. So it's clear that the US ambassador to Zimbabwe, Brian Nichols, is the de facto president of MDC Alliance, and obviously America being a superpower, they can then play around with the SADC leaders to cow them into their game. To me, the meeting was all about like it was going to be all about finding a lasting solution in Zimbabwe, and then obviously sort of strategically disregard the outcome of the elections, and either going to when they say dialogue, to me they want maybe President ED and Nelson Chamisa to work together, sort of a government of national unity in a way. And because now what is happening is that as we are every day which is passing, Nelson Chamisa is losing relevance politically. Now, so this dialogue thing, it's a way. To me, even ANC coming to Zimbabwe, it was a political first aid. They are trying to rescue the MDC Alliance and Nelson Chamisa's political fortunes, because Nelson Chamisa is losing relevance because he promised the Zimbabweans nothing other than the presidency, and he is not a president anymore. He is screaming in the mountain about being robbed, and it's not changing anything on the ground. Hence, now he is a president of the Zimbabwe Funeral Palace Association.
So I hear you. They were in there to surprise ZANU-PF.
Yes.
But since that hasn't worked, what is the game plan? Why do we have all these stories now coming, Mugwadi and all this Sophie Mokoena? What is happening? What has brought everything to the fore? Is it related to the issues at Bedbridge?
Not really, but I want to comment. There's one thing that Africa and the world and the Zimbabweans at large are not taking pride in. Our intelligence are very good. And so the government of Zimbabwe, like any other government, makes decisions through the intelligence. And surely for ZANU-PF to stay in power for 40 years now, when the regime change agenda has been well oiled and well funded, anyone who doesn't give credit to our intelligence, that person is denying reality. So I think Chamisa is looking like a wandering, flying grass, because he is pitting against the. People must not forget that ED was the first minister of state security in Zimbabwe. So if he is the president of the country, surely Chamisa is challenging 5 lions, bear. I mean, it's clear that ED is 20 years ahead of Chamisa, and Chamisa must just get some mentorship. Full stop.
Okay, but what has caused this uproar to build up? We have never heard Mugwadi directly threatening to reveal the ANC secrets. We have never seen the South African president directly responding to a junior ZANU-PF, someone who doesn't even have a proper position in ZANU-PF. What is happening there?
I think, to me, I think underwater there is the submarines, there is the sharks and whales swimming, and I think that public spate, to me, is a symptom of controlled and well-managed tensions.
Okay, so did Tafazwa Mugwadi leak this story into this Star newspaper?
I'm not sure of that, but from my interpretation of Comrade Mugwadi's fight with Sophie Mukwena, I can tell that he was defending his party, he was defending his president, he was defending the country. He understands the political language and the political capital that the relentless coverage of MDC Alliance on SABC, he understands the language because obviously that has never happened in the history of South Africa and Zimbabwe. That one would be. I've seen a lot of social media comments of South Africans that complain about Peter Ndoro and SABC forgetting that they are not a Zimbabwean television, broadcaster. Sometimes one won't be faulted to think that SABC is a Zimbabwean, or it has just been acquired majority shareholders as Zimbabweans. SABC at every turn of event, they've got to cover a Zimbabwean story. So to me, Comrade Mugwadi has got reasons to be frustrated. And personally, I admire his stance of defending his party and defending his country.
Okay, so I'm running through a number of pictures. And specifically, I'm very interested in this picture here. And most likely this one here.
Yeah.
What do these pictures show about ZANU-PF to the world? Why is ZANU-PF arresting these people that are always bringing attention upon Zimbabwe?
Okay. I will give you an example. I forgot his name. Is it Assange or Asanke? How do you pronounce the weekly guy?
Julius Assange. Yes.
Thank you. That guy has brought a lot of attention and leaks to the American secrets, classified information. But it didn't stop US from going after him. Zimbabwe as a country, not only the ED administration, Zimbabwe as a country, Zimbabweans as the citizens of the nation, our duty is to protect the national dignity. We can't whistle when people are just tweeting, and all MDC Alliance people scream every day. It's the negativity about the police, about the intelligence, about the cabinet ministers, about the president's office. To the world. So the government has got the mandate to protect the national image of the country. So for me, I think ED is even very soft. The MDC Alliance outfit needs to be dismantled with might and power. To me, I think to me, I'm even disappointed in ED. MDC Alliance, to me, it's a direct internal threat. And though if ED is listening, or ZANU-PF people are listening to me, I would tell them I'm disappointed in ED. If I were president of Zimbabwe, I was going to dismantle MDC Alliance within a matter of days.
Okay, is this not the reason why Ramaphosa is forced to support Chamisa?
He must not have invested political interest in Zimbabwe, because Zimbabwe is a sovereign country. The same way, people in ZANU-PF, they can also have personal political affiliations within South African political industry, but they don't need to take a position as an office of the president, or as the office of ZANU-PF, or as the government. You don't take a political position within a sovereign country. That is called interference, and it has got a disastrous consequences the West is even a civil war, sorry, a war. When a country is interfering with another country's political, industry, that can cause even a war. So, or recalling of diplomats. So the real point is Zimbabwe has been on the sanctions attack. So they've been trying to be soft, trying to play a good image. While there's no denying that the MDC alliance's narrative is on top of the government narrative. ZANU-PF has been caught napping, government has been caught napping in terms of propping up the national narrative, which must be, it's the duty of the government to sell the country regionally, internationally, so that it will attract investors and a whole lot of opportunities. But the government of Zimbabwe is not playing well in the narrative industry. MDC alliance is on top of the government. It's now that the government is realizing that they've been caught napping by these MDC apologists and agents like Ruhanya and the spokesperson Hopo Chimono.
Okay. So Chamisa refused to comment on this story. Why do you think he did that?
Because if the story is true, the moment he denies it, he doesn't know who leaked the initial information. The same person can, since if it's true that the intelligence they're probing the links, they can't probe links for a long period. If they are not getting anything, any leads, then they must abandon the probe. The moment, if they are more motivated, they are more inspired to follow the leads. It means the investigations are maybe promising. So Chamisa can't then deny if it's true, because he knows that hard evidence can be produced.
Okay, and what are the consequences of Ramaphosa supporting Chamisa? What can ZANU-PF do?
To me, I think it's tricky, because if the issue is being investigated by the intelligence, we all know that the duty of the intelligence is to gather information, which then helps the government in policy formulation and implementation. Because there's a diplomatic diplomacy, obviously, is at stake. Obviously, there's so much intelligence South Africa is gathering about Zimbabwe. There's so much intelligence Zimbabwe is gathering of South Africa throughout all these years. But they need peace, they need unity. So to me, these two countries are forced to play unity. Zimbabwe, if indeed they gather intelligence that the Ramaphosa office or administration is indeed funding Chamisa, to me, they won't come out clearly and say and confront South Africa. To me, they are also, because the intelligence community's duty is to also respond in terms of intelligence. They need to respond with intelligently. I mean, it's not a matter of confronting each other, because
okay, like leaking the story, right? Is this Zimbabwe intelligence? Who is leaking such a story?
Okay. Remember, I'm not in a position to know that this story on its own is authentic or not. But let's consider the story is authentic. To me, then, if the intelligence are probing the issue, then the only department which can leak probably can be them strategically. Maybe to leak is to say, hey, we are watching you. Can you stop funding that that funeral director, can you stop to fund that boy? Was is going nowhere. Is in our grip. Yeah, Dinda Kubata, I mean, then if I stick on Jampres again, provoker, don't provoke me. So it could be another possibility. Because I don't think if Zimbabwe can gather intelligence to that effect, they need to come out and confront. They must be smarter. The word intelligence means to be smarter.
Okay, you are also on record as saying that Jonathan Moyo is resident in South Africa. Do you still stand by that story? Do you think this is one of the other things that is going to come out as this fight continues?
Yeah. Let me just say in short, not only Jonathan Moyo, the G40 head office is Johannesburg, sending and surrounding areas, the four ways, and was obviously sending four ways their cousins. Uh, that's the head office of G40. So whether Jonathan Moyo can go and see his in-laws to Ed Lobola or whatever in Kenya there, but obviously their head office is Johannesburg in Sending. So the Kenya thing, obviously, it's something to deceive. But Jonathan Moyo is in South Africa.
Okay, is he being kept here by Ramaphosa? Directly supported by Ramaphosa?
Remember, I can't say on record that I know Ramaphosa is sponsoring these people and Ramaphosa is keeping the G40. But whether they came to South Africa to apply for refugee or not, I wouldn't know their status and everything. But G40 is planning and strategizing in Johannesburg. And Jonathan Moyo, we know, is the master. Jonathan Moyo is actually the leader of G40 in terms of strategizing. Kasukuere just wanted to be a president because of his Shona privilege. Jonathan Moyo thinks maybe Ndebele being a minority might not run in Zimbabwe. So he would want to put either Kasukuere or put Chamisa, so that those ones he can then replace them later. Jonathan Moyo wants to be a president of Zimbabwe, but he is maybe better in strategizing, but he's not a politician.
Okay, so let's put this all together. Zimbabwe is under sanctions. Sanctions that you say were called on Zimbabwe by Chamisa, Changirai, Tendai Biti, people in G40, Hopo Chingono, all these people who are getting awards, people who are faking abductions.
Yeah.
So let's put all this together. If all these people are being kept here by Ramaphosa, can we then say Ramaphosa is in support of the sanctions on Zimbabwe?
All right. I don't want to say on record, but I would say as an opinion. I feel like there is there's a relationship somehow between G40 and President Ramaphosa. I personally feel like there's a relationship. Whether the relationship is to further to support the G40 to take over Zimbabwe, or it's just that they came here and say we are refugees, please intervene. G40 was outsmarted by Lacoste. Please help us to get back Zimbabwe. Our power, we are going to give you farms and mines. I would know where the relationship starts and ends, but definitely there's a good relationship between the two.
Okay, where does Grace Mugabe fit into all this?
To me, Grace Mugabe Number one, Grace Mugabe has never been a politician and will never be a politician, because you don't become a politician by being a baby mama with a politician. But Grace Mugabe, to me, in this whole equation, she's the funder, because there's no doubt that President Robert Mugabe left an estate which can transcend into trillions, into billions, if not trillions. So she has got the money.
Okay, but she said she'll be back in 3 years. Is she still going to be back? What we're seeing now? Is this confusion not being created by people in Zimbabwe to set a stage for confusion in the fight with the ANC, which will explode and then result in the removal of Mnangagwa?
Yeah, there is a possibility that obviously the G40 are planning day in, day out for 24 hours. They are not in South Africa. The G40 are not in South Africa for holidaying. They are not in South Africa for refugee per se. If they are asylum seekers, obviously they are hiding behind a finger. But they are in South Africa to plan a return to Zimbabwe, and they don't know. It's clear that the G40 will never be, even if they are allowed in ZANU-PF. To me, they won't be in ZANU-PF. They won't be in ZANU-PF for any brotherhood. They'll be in ZANU-PF to plan their way to take over, because they are aggrieved that when Mugabe was ready to hand over power to them, and then in the 11th hour, Lacoste took over. So the G40 are very angry, and they would want to take over power with any means necessary. So seriously, they are mounting plans to take over. They don't want anything other than total power.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. How should Mnangagwa handle the situation that's developing? Because this is now out in the open. Ramaphosa has responded, but Mnangagwa said nothing. In fact, I think there was a response by SK Moyo, but I haven't seen Mnangagwa himself speaking. How should Mnangagwa respond to this development?
I think ED must not respond to anything, because you don't add paraffin to fire. To me, there's no need of him to respond, because there was no need even for President Ramaphosa to respond to Comrade Mugwadi. But anyway, he responded for the reasons well known to him and his team, because the drama must not play in public. To me, it's not. These political parties have got so many years. The ANC has celebrated, I think, 109 years since it was formed. They should have learned a lot in how to deal with other countries and diplomacy and everything, international relations. And the ZANU-PF is over 50, 60 years old. And for it to survive that long, it means it was managing well strategic relationships with the other parties and countries. So I think as who run small political parties, we have got a lot to learn from these parties. And if then they do drama publicly, it will be a huge disappointment.
Okay. So you think he should not respond? Then how should he handle Chamisa? I find it difficult now how are they going to move on from this point?
To me, if I was an advisor to ZANU-PF or ED, I was going to say Chamisa must be dismantled morning, day, rain or thunder, because Chamisa is the logo of US. Chamisa is a logo of imperialism. That's why Chamisa can't be humble. Chamisa can be humble enough to engage anyone. That's just last week or so. You saw Obeistole blasting the MDC, sorry, the Chamisa Chete Chete choir members. They always whistle when Opuo Chingono is trashing ZANU-PF and the government and the office of the president. When Opuo also went back to how MDC Alliance is also lacking strategy, or based on they all went for a kill. And even supporters of MDC Alliance were also, some were not happy on social media, saying, guys, you should be humble enough to accept criticism. So the reason why Chamisa and Chamisa and Charlton Wende, they are business partners, would then brand themselves as an MDC Alliance political party. Hence, they are not they don't lose sleep when Opuo Chingono is arrested. They don't lose sleep right now. They don't lose sleep. They don't do action. They don't care. They are partners in their businesses in South Zimbabwe, in their businesses in South Africa and Namibia. These are business partners. They don't care. So because they are captured, they don't care about the suffering of their supporters. Joshua Ngomo swallowed his ambition to become the president. He swallowed his pride and sat down with Mugabe, his enemy, his nemesis, for the sake of saving people in Matabeleland who were under siege. That's leadership. That's why Chamisa is saying he's a Christian, he's a pastor, although I think some people need to investigate how he is a pastor. In the Bible, we learned that there were two women and then they were fighting for a baby. And the real mother of the baby, because she understands the value of a baby, she was humble enough to say, don't cut the baby. In other words, don't kill the baby. You rather give her the baby. So a true mother, a true father, a true leader. A leader is a father to his followers. A leader is a father to the citizens of Zimbabwe who are for many years are suffering. A leader would rather say, give ED, give whoever, for the sake of Zimbabweans. But Chamisa is clear. He talks about legitimacy. He talks about his power. Chamisa rarely speaks only about the suffering Zimbabweans. Always he talks about dialogue. He talks about illegitimacy and that his power was stolen. Chamisa is only about power. Why? Because Chamisa is a Wall Street. It's a Zimbabwe political stock exchange. Chamisa is a stock exchange that imperialists are investing in him. So Chamisa will never be humble. Chamisa will never do anything for his supporters. He will always stick to his narrative, because when you are funded, you don't have space to breathe.
Okay. So I think we have covered this, and I think we can summarize it in this way. This article says Nelson Chamisa is being funded by Cyril Ramaphosa. They had secret meetings before the ANC delegations came to Zimbabwe. And you agree that there's a possibility, although you say the article could also be wrong, in terms of who planted this story. There's a number of people who could have planted that story into the public domain, and we're probably going to see more information coming out between ZANU-PF and ANC. Do you think the relationship between the ANC and ZANU-PF is damaged beyond repair?
To me, it's not damaged beyond repair, because even if they could have gone to war, even after war, the relationship is not damaged beyond repair, because still after war, people still imagine ZANU-PF and the party of the late Ian Smith. They were at war, but But Ian Smith was even free in Zimbabwe under the administration of Robert Mugabe. So to me, there is no relationship that would on earth that can be damaged beyond repair, because the dialogue and the engagement is always something to do at any time. Was wisdom, we talk about love. So the relationship to me is not damaged beyond repair. How they continue bickering and try to fight is what can then strain the relationship further. But this is politics. Politics it's not like a lovey-dovey relationship. Politics is always politics, and these are comrades who are hardened. In the ZANU-PF on the other side, they are all veterans. They don't panic. They don't. Sometimes they don't fear. So these are comrades that can have friendly fires and jabs. But to me, the relationship is intact.
Okay, let's conclude now with your video that you made to Joe Biden, the new president of the United States, and Kamala Harris. Tell us more about that. What was that video about?
I've realized a lot of mistakes opposition political parties are making in Zimbabwe and in Africa in general. Opposition political parties are formed in Zimbabwe specifically for two things. Number one, for donor funds. Number two, for power. The role of an opposition political party is to be a partner of the government. Come 2023, I will be contesting against the ZANU-PF as a party, but I'm not going to contest against the government. So every citizen of Zimbabwe, every opposition, every church, every civic society, they are partners of the government. Because according to my definition, the government means within the borders of Zimbabwe. Anything that is within the border of Zimbabwe, it must be called a government. Whether it's a cow, whether it's anything, it's a mountain, it's a government. So, but opposition political parties in Zimbabwe, because we are so desperate for power, we tend to separate ourselves from the government. And I don't know how. Because for you to have a passport, for you to vote, for you to drive in a highway, you are dealing with the government. They can even make a roadblock and stop you. For you to sleep in your house peacefully, it means you are in good relations with the government. No one must be the enemy of the government. I don't need to fight the government. When ED is in Munumutapa, he is the president of the government of Zimbabwe. He is the leader of the government, sorry. If a ZANU-PF member is a minister, when I meet him, is my honorable person that I must respect. Whether he's a good minister or not, that is my duty as an opposition to mention their shortfalls and to also point out their weaknesses, so that that's the role of opposition, and it must be done in a friendly environment. I don't need to insult a councillor, my local councillor, when I think he's not doing the job all right. So as a Zimbabwe citizen, number one, I need to play my individual role. Sanctions are an external attack. Sanctions are not hating ZANU-PF. Sanctions are hating everyone in Zimbabwe. I need to fight them as an individual, and then if every Zimbabwean is doing something for a better Zimbabwe, when we combine our efforts, it becomes a national effort. A good Zimbabwe is going to come from Tinashe, from John, from Chipo, from Muchiera, from Mofela. Listen, ED is like my grandfather. His rest is about to end. So if let's say in 20 years or in 10 years or 20 years, ED passes on, are we then saying 20 years later, if ED can pass, let's say when he's 100 or is 110 years old, whatever, are we then saying Zimbabwe must be in tatters? If ZANU-PF can be out of power after 20 years or 30 years, in that 20 years must be Zimbabwe gone to. We mustn't celebrate the suffering of Zimbabweans. We mustn't celebrate the challenges in our country so that ZANU-PF must be out of power. In America right now, the Republicans the president was a Republican. And Donald Trump, I want to salute him. He managed the American economy so well, more than President Obama. I mean, so that the next president now is going to also to enjoy. But the MDC is applying what is called the scorched earth policy. They are celebrating when people are suffering because they point out that we need a new leadership. They celebrate when they deny that there are sanctions. They say the sanctions. MDC wanted to walk on top of dead bodies into power because they are learning from their godfather Tsvangirai, who brought the sanctions. And Chamisa went to US Congress to also want to renew them. So MDC is formed for power. They don't care about anything. They can campaign even at funerals. They don't care. Any opportunity.
Okay. So Mr. Jonas, I think let's go to a conclusion because obviously it's a weekday.
Yeah.
The sanctions are coming up for renewal in February.
Yes.
From my understanding, I don't have particular details. I think we should go into it with people who really focus on the sanctions.
Okay.
Do you think ZANU-PF is doing enough leading up to the renewal of the sanctions?
Okay.
To communicate. I saw the tweet by Mnangagwa to Joe Biden. Is ZANU-PF and the government of Zimbabwe doing enough to make the United States government reconsider their position? Or they are making it worse just before the renewal?
The government of Zimbabwe must not do less or do enough or more than enough. Why? Because the US won't supervise how Zimbabwe must be run. The moment the government of Zimbabwe run Zimbabwe to please US, it means the citizens of Zimbabwe must take them out of power because they become a stooge of America. America is doing exactly what they've put sanctions on Zimbabwe for. They are saying the elections was not free and fair. In America right now, the 5 people died at Capitol Hill, including the police officer, because the president supporters they are aggrieved that they were robbed the election, although they are losing every court case. The same as what Chamisa is happening. Zimbabwe is under sanctions, and the same reasons why Zimbabwe is under sanctions, the same reasons are playing out in America. So is it also correct that America must meet its own demands on Zimbabwe? They are also failing to meet them. So how will Zimbabwe meet the American expectations when America is failing to meet its own democracy demands? So Zimbabwe is a sovereign country. Any problems in Zimbabwe must be solved by Zimbabweans. If I have got a problem with Mr. Pardon Kambakwe, whether on air or off air, I can call you and talk to you because we are fellow brothers. We can't be enemies, me and you, because one day we are going to meet at the border. Maybe I need assistance. We're going to meet in Zimbabwe. Zimbabweans must learn to engage without structures. I don't need a team of 20 with experts for me to have a discussion with the ED. I don't need a team of experts to structure myself for me to have a meeting with Mr. Monzora. I can, as long as I've got his number, I can call him. I talk to Mr. Monzora. I talk to different leaders without any structure, without an agenda. So our problem when we say dialogue, we think a dialogue is people sitting in a 5-star hotel and agreeing, talking about power. Power sharing, power transfer is not a dialogue. We don't need this power sharing. Power sharing is done by elections. If there are reforms, we need to do everything. We need to engage as Zimbabweans. So to me, every opposition party must be Zimbabwean. When we are Zimbabwean, we are going to foster unity and foster homegrown solutions. Americans are not calling MDC Alliance for their discussions. South Africa is not calling Chamisa to address their parliament, to sit them on the table. So why must Chamisa call Ramaphosa to Zimbabwe? We don't need that. Thabo Mbeki came to Zimbabwe. That was the last. We don't want any South African. South Africa must not monopolize our politics, must not monopolize our dialogue. It was a mistake for Thabo Mbeki. We'll never repeat it again.
Right. Mr. Tinashe Jonas, President of Ideal Zimbabwe, I think let's wrap up at this particular point at exactly 1 hour. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
MDC Alliance, to me, it's a foreign entity, and it's an internal threat to democracy, to unity. And I just beg Nelson Chamisa to forget about power and concentrate on the lives of Zimbabwe. When we say Zimbabwe lives matter, we are saying Zimbabweans must not suffer. Zimbabwe lives matter is not meaning Chamisa must be given power. I think if an opposition leader, if I become a president of Zimbabwe one day, it will be a reward or a bonus by Zimbabwean citizens if they admire or inspire, or they are inspired by what you have done to the country. I think a president must be someone who is rewarded the trust, the highest honor by the citizens. You should not plan every day how to become a president, because being a president is not a personal agenda. It must be a national agenda.
Mr. Tinashe Jonas, I really enjoyed talking to you. And I think we need to really take some time to talk about the arrests. I do not understand the strategy behind the arrests, because I think it's also contributing to this bad image that Zimbabwe is getting. But I'm getting chased from this place where I am. So I think we need to move this to, normally we talk on Fridays. Let's come back on Friday and talk about the arrests. I want your opinion on these arrests, because I don't get it, but I am unfortunately out of time. And maybe we should set up some time on Friday night to talk about the arrests. Or I can arrange another time when you're free. So, Mr. Jonasi and everyone at home, it's been a long hour. And I know we did a lot more that we would have wanted to say. And I would like to invite everyone else who wants to come in. If the Chamisa guys want to respond, if they want to talk about this story, they are welcome, and we can talk about that. So I think let's wrap it up. Mr. Jonasi, I'm sorry, I know I cut you off before we could finish. And I would like to say good night to everyone who is at home. Thank you very much, sir.